Hi, I'm Josh Rushing, sitting in for Femi, and you're in the stream. Today, allegations of corruptions, protests, Twitter bans, none of it stopped Turkey's AK party from coming out on top in local elections. So what's ahead for the party and its leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan? All right, I'm joined here with my friend and colleague and our digital producer, Malika Bilal. Now, you guys are actually building kind of an audience around Turkish issues, right?
We are, yeah, getting lots of tweets. We've done a couple of shows on Turkey in the past few months, and it's really developed a base. So lots of people are tweeting us, and there's a lot online. I'd like to show us one of the things online is a group. They're organizing on Twitter. They call themselves 140 Journos, and that's a little nod at 140 characters on Twitter. They are going to each and every polling station. They have a tweet here on my screen. Each and every polling station in Turkey to verify the results via a crowdsourcing map. That's the map that I pulled up here. And they're posting those results there. Of course, this is a hot and heavy topic on social media, so we want to hear what you have to say. Use hashtag AJStream.
My name is Bisi Alimi. I'm a social commentator, human rights activist, and I'm on the street.
Turkey's local elections were described as the biggest challenge in 12 years to the ruling Justice and Development Party, or the AKP. Now, they were also a test of the popularity of its leader, Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The Turkish leader has been at the center of corruption allegations, accusations of authoritarianism, ongoing protests, as well as Twitter and YouTube bans. Despite this, his party only lost 5% of their supporters, handily taking the elections with 45% of the vote. While opposition parties requested a recount in the hotly contested cities like Ankara and Antalya, Erdogan says the results prove his critics wrong. In a victory speech, he promised to go after his enemies for what he believes are smear campaigns against his government. So what's the secret behind AKP's electoral success? And what will this victory mean for the future of Turkish politics? To help us discuss this, we're joined from Ankara by Bilal Majid, a member of parliament from the ruling Justice and Development Party, also known as the AK Party, Hakan Kamuz, lobbyist and chairman of the Mossad UK, an NGO that supports the Turkish government and Prime Minister Erdogan. In Istanbul are Emre Kızılkaya, managing editor of Hürriyet Daily News, and Melike Tufan Yazıcı, activist and election monitor. Welcome to all of you. I'm going to start with Bilal. Bilal, was this vote a mandate or a referendum? And if so, what does that referendum say from the people?
It was a local election, but despite the fact that it was a local election, December 17 and 25 operations turned this local election into a kind of a referendum or a vote of confidence for Prime Minister Erdogan and AK Party and its policies. And the results show us that we passed the vote. And the results show us that people support Prime Minister Erdogan and people support AK Party and our both domestic and foreign policies. So it was, yes, a referendum, but people voted for the local representatives and the mayors, that's true. But on the other hand, people stand with the politics and people stand next to Prime Minister Erdogan and presented their support to him by voting for AK Party in this election.
Emre, can you give us a rundown of some of the controversies that have confronted the AKP in recent months? Everything from the Twitter ban and the YouTube ban, the leaked tapes, the corruption. Can you kind of give our audience just a sense of what's happening there in Turkey?
I guess the first critical event in Turkey before the election was the Gezi Park protest last June. It was a test for the government, and the pollsters were saying that in the first few months the government really lost a lot of support, popular support. Some 5–6% of votes they lost, but they recovered initially. The government recovered after September. They were back like during the early months of 2013, coming to closer somewhere like 40%, 50% of popular support. But when the December 17 corruption investigations, the massive graft investigations, the claims of bribery, high-level corruption, some pollsters were giving figures as if the government was losing some 10%. Some of them were saying even more. Of course, the YouTube ban, the Twitter ban, which followed as we approached to the local elections, March 30 local elections, there were no real polls about the effects of this. But the general perception was that the government could lose votes because of these bans too. But in the end, we have seen that the effect was minimized by the government by a successful campaign, a successful electoral campaign.
Emre, can you get into that a bit? How did the AKP overcome all of that?
The AKP, I guess, Erdogan himself, Prime Minister Erdogan himself, by taking all the responsibility and all the authority on himself, and by presenting the local elections like a general election, he managed to shield his own ministers, for instance, by himself. Because of his charisma, he was able to do it. In some of the cities during the local election campaigns, Erdogan went and the posters, the propaganda billboards of the ruling AKP was just featuring Erdogan instead of featuring mayors, for instance, of these mayoral candidates of the ruling Justice and Development Party. So it was like Erdogan was like a mayoral candidate in all of the Turkish cities.
You know, Josh, it's interesting. You asked at the top of the show whether or not this was a referendum. There's someone on Twitter who answered you. This is Aiden. He says, the vote's definitely for Erdogan himself. There might be corrupt people in his government, but people trust him. Another person writes in, Sevgi, she says, the short answer is that people want prosperity and stability the most, and AKP seems to deliver it. Corruption just doesn't matter for many. So, Menike, I'd like your thoughts on that. What were people, when they went to vote, obviously corruption wasn't the main issue. What was?
Considering corruption as not an important matter is interesting, but we can see that they just don't care because it is not their primary need. Their primary need is something else. I mean, there are 8 million AKP, registered AKP party members, and they are protecting their own entourages, and they are giving courage, and they are watching each other. So it is easy to understand them that they love and trust the Prime Minister and AKP also. So it is easy to understand it. But of the civil rights, transparency of the government is not their main problem. But as us, as an opposers, we give importance to that issues: transparency, civil rights, individual rights, and freedom, legislation freedom, etc.
Hakan, can you give us a sense of who supports the AKP? What is their base? And what I mean is, are they getting more of the vote from the city or the country, from rich or poor, from younger or older? Who is it in Turkey that is providing AKP with this kind of support?
If you allow me, Josh, just let me make a little correction to your beginning piece there. When compared the elections, general election last time, it was just over 50%. And obviously you calculated from last general election, but the local election was 38%. In this election, AK Party actually gained over 7% of the vote. Just to give you some number analysis here, that actually reflects in general election over 55%. So that's how it is, and I would like to impress on this point, because it actually means AK Party's support has increased, and on this election they have actually got more local municipality to run, and the amount of vote they've actually got increased. So this popular support comes from a wide variety of voter base in Turkey, because as some of your guests have already indicated, Prime Minister is one of the most trusted politicians in Turkey. AK Party is. And there may be allegations of corruption, which I tell you, it will be the Prime Minister himself who will deal with it. And people actually know and trust him that he will deal with it. That's why they vote for him. And this is a variety of voters, from young to old, every kind of generation of people who support this Prime Minister and AK Party.
But don't you worry with him being in power for so long, going on 12 years, right? do you worry about it becoming kind of a one-party authoritarian state?
I'll be honest with you, Josh. Unfortunately, in Turkey, you have opposition parties who cannot even come up with a single project, single political idea, something new to say. AK Party represents stability. AK Party represents new projects. Turkey has developed so much in the last 12 years when this party was in government. Economically, business thrived, projects in Turkey, massive projects. It adds so much to the economy, which part that we are interested in. And everybody, like some of your guests already indicated, are happy with the prosperous output of the policies of AK Party. There is nobody else actually does politics in Turkey like AK Party do.
Emre, I'd like you to pick up on what Hakan said. Hakan, I hate to interrupt you, but I have to pick up on that because you said there's nobody else that is doing what the AK Party is doing. And there's people here online that completely agree with you. So there's one person who writes in, there's some people, even if they believe the AKP was involved in corruption, they vote AKP because they don't consider other parties an option. There's also a video comment. Emre, have a listen to this and let me know what you think.
The local elections in Turkey on March 30th reveal where the Turkish public stands. For the past decade, the Turkish public has enjoyed a growing economy, improved public services, and increased social mobility. That's the platform that the AKP party and its leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan has advanced. Turkey's opposition has not been able to articulate a similar vision. They say that they're the anti-Erdogan party, but they have not been able to persuade Turkish voters what they would exactly do for the Turkish nation.
So Emre, can you speak to what she says, that the opposition has nothing to offer?
Well, if opposition has got nothing to offer, then how did they have the larger the majority of votes? Because if AKP has got 43 or some say 45%, and the opposition parties now have 55, 57%, right?
No, that's not correct. Opposition party isn't one party. You're talking about 4 different parties, and the highest of which is 23%.
I said plural.
So we can break down the opposition in a number of different ways. One would be the official opposition party, which one might point to the Republican People's Party, or the CHP. It seems like they did a little better in these elections, right? But there's another type of opposition, and that's kind of the grassroots opposition. Melike, you were a part of that. You were a part of what happened at Gezi Park. Does this election represent a failure of that grassroots movement, that it wasn't more present in the way the votes came out?
Actually not, because let's say there were 1 million people at Gezi Park, but that 1 million people didn't vote to the same party. Yes, some people tried to give a direction to those people to give their votes to the same party, but that didn't happen because they don't have the exact same political views. Because at the Gezi Park, nobody shared exact same political views. We were apolitic people. We were only concerned about human rights, environmental rights, and civil rights. So that was a very short time to create a one political understanding.
Can I just say something about what Melike just said? Melike, there's no point exaggerating the amount of numbers that you want to present in this program. There was no 1 million people at Gezi Park. You know that, I know that, and the whole audience know that. And you're right, most of the people who actually went to Gezi Park protested somewhat, but I'll tell you, even some of amongst those people who actually voted for AK Party, and that's a factual understanding that you need to accept.
Yes, that's right. They voted because the thing wasn't. It wasn't pro-AK Party thing. It was a pro-government thing, because government doesn't listen to the voters. I mean, let's say having 43% of the votes does not mean that he is the prime minister of 43% only. He should keep listening to us. He should carry the citizens equally. Am I right? He should comfort us about our concerns. I mean, he should respect our way of life, and the most important thing is that if there are claims of corruption, he must prove that they are false. And if not,
and that's what isn't that what exactly he said straight after the election in his party speech, that he will be the one who will deal with the corruption? Didn't he the one who said AK Party came with those manifestation of dealing with the corruption, getting rid of the poverty and developing the country? Well, and isn't that what they've been doing?
I think Melike is also saying that he needs to represent just not one half of the nation. It's all about this kind of polarization. Bilal, can we bring you in the conversation here? When you listen to the speech that Erdogan gave after the vote came out, and he said that he's going to go after this other side, he's going to go after these other people, is he creating a more polarized political situation there in Turkey with that kind of language?
I don't believe that there is this kind of a polarization in Turkey. I mean, first of all, when we look at the distribution of the votes by region and by parties, we can easily see that AK Party is a national political party, and only political party in Turkey that runs in every city, that runs politics in every city in Turkey. But if you look at the opposition parties, they're stuck in some specific regions. And on the other hand, I mean, all country, all citizens are united by one political party. There is no opposition. I mean, this is totalitarianism. In democracies, there's going to be the opposition. There's going to be the different views, different ideologies. But again, as I said, AK Party, I believe that is one of the biggest coalitions of the Republican history. There are Kurdish people, Turkish people, Muslims, non-Muslims, Alevis and Sunnis people, and people from various backgrounds, such as right-wing politicians and left-wing politicians, are members of the AK Party, and also they support AK Party, which shows us that AK Party is the most comprehensive political party in Turkey. And if you look at all the elections since 2002, we see that, yeah.
Hakan, you wanted to get in?
I just wanted to say what Bilal is saying is correct, because that kind of answers Josh's question, earlier question. He was asking about who are the people who vote for AK Party, and I think what Bilal is describing is a perfect, simple making an explanation of the voter base of Turkish AK Party's supporters.
Well, I also wanted to pick up on something that Bilal said. You know, of course, being an MP, you have a certain view, and you mentioned that you don't agree with the fact that there's polarization. There is members of our community, of course, that will not agree with that. Have a listen to this video comment, everyone.
Prime Minister Erdogan winning the elections is not necessarily an issue for me, but I have serious problem, perhaps 3 serious problems with Prime Minister Erdogan. One is Prime Minister's extremely harsh language that polarizes Turkey, labels different parts, different segments of Turkish society. 2 will be his full disengagement from Turkey's EU process. And 3 will be his constant attacks on Turkey's precious democratic institutions.
So Bilal, I saw you taking notes there. There were a lot of criticisms there from that member of our community. What do you have to say to that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get your question because of the earphone.
There were a lot of criticisms in this video comment from Yorick, who said that there is polarization. He also says that he thinks there's a constant attack by the AKP on the democratic process. What do you say to that?
I think, I mean, Turkey is a functional and stable democracy, and the reforms are faster than ever. Some people are criticizing the harsh language, but this is not a one-way dialogue. We should look at the opposition party leaders' language towards Prime Minister Erdogan and towards the society, which is really harsh. I mean, there are some words that I can't even mention in this conversation. But on the other hand, there might be some ups and downs in democracies. But when we consider the years previous to AK Party governments, Turkey is much better placed, and the democratization is much more enhanced in today's Turkey. But on the other hand, there might be some people who lost their privileges because of this normalization and democratization process, and some people call it as anti-democratization, but I don't agree with that. There were some districts in Istanbul that our political party find it really difficult to make this election campaign because of the physical attacks. I mean, this was also a harsh language towards AK Party. But anyway, just after the election, the Prime Minister Erdogan, in his balcony speech, announced that he will analyze the results, and we are trying to find out why we couldn't won the 50% or 60% of the votes in Turkish election in the local elections, which proves that we do our best to increase our support, but to enhance democratization process in Turkey.
And can I pick up on the point of the EU policies of AK Party? Because I have quite interest in that point, where EU and Turkey has been negotiating a lot of phases to be open for negotiations, and EU simply blocked it because they keep coming up with excuses. Recently there was a court ruling about Turkish citizens' right to travel freely. EU will even refrain from implementing European court decisions within their own sphere of influence, let alone open up negotiations with the current government, just so that they can somehow put political pressure on the government to cave in on other international issues that concern, like Cyprus, on other.
Please, let's don't refer to the European law when we are blocking YouTube, when Twitter is still have problems in Turkey.
Oh, come on, Emre, let's talk about law. Let's talk about law. I will talk to you about the law. And you and I had that discussion last time, you remember. This was a due process of law that has not been implemented. I mean, you expect Turkey not to have any law and anyone to do anything you like.
Hakan,
so we just have an anarchy.
In Britain. You have YouTube now. I don't have YouTube. I can't even follow your videos. Sorry. What's
the problem there, Hakan, with YouTube and with Twitter and the idea of a free flow of information?
Look, I just want to say, and I said this last time and several times, shutting down social media is not a solution to any problem. But at the same time, companies, this is like international companies like Twitter or international companies like YouTube, cannot simply ignore rules in Turkey. This is the law of the land. We respect it. Okay, and if you do not respect the law of the land, then you will face the consequences. And as you can see, Twitter's ban is lifted, YouTube ban is lifted today, Emre, for your information. Also,
YouTube ban is not lifted yet. There is a court decision now. The court ruling.
Hakan, hold on just a second. I want to hear what Maliki is trying to say.
Maliki, point here is this.
Get in there.
Hold on, Can I just make a point about the issue here?
But look, you've made a number of points.
You cannot have international companies like that ignoring the rules of the court.
But you made that point already, Hakan. Please let Maliki get it. And Maliki, I only have about a minute here, so say it quickly.
Yes, saying the Twitter issues between the Twitter company and government means nothing because it is only shifting the point. If you have problems with the company, you can't punish the citizens. I mean, it is a matter of public opinion and it's a matter of freedom of expression. You can't make a subject.
So we should let Twitter do whatever it likes in Turkey because we're a banana republic. Is that what you're saying, Melika?
No, we have tax laws, we have laws. Exactly.
We have courts, we have judges.
Okay, hold on, guys. I'm going to stop you right there. Wait, guys, I'm going to stop you there. You're going to have to join us in the post-show to hear the rest of this obviously lively discussion. But I would like to give the last word to our community.
So what our community is leaving us with is, appropriately, talk about Twitter. Sevgi says, although social media is very popular in Turkey among the young and the urban, the masses in rural places don't have any idea about Twitter. On the other hand, though, we got this tweet from ASG. She says, no, Twitter and YouTube censorship have been the ultimate reason for why I didn't vote for AKP. Interesting thoughts there.
Yeah, our audience won't like that.
No,
right?
Of course not.
You can do it. Corruption, maybe. But turning off Twitter,
exactly.
I think not.
That's when people get mad.
All right. Look, that's all the time we have for the main show. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us today, Bilal, Hakan, Imre, and Malike. We're going to continue this obviously very lively discussion in the online post show at stream.aljazeera.com. I think you won't want to miss that. And on the next show, well, it's actually not me. It's you, Malike. What are you going to say over in this chair?
I'll be shifting chairs, so we'll talk about Rwanda. 20 years after the Rwandan genocide, has the country reconciled with its past? We'll hear personal stories from genocide survivors, so you can send us your questions for them. In the meantime, we'll be looking out for you on Fault Lines.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm on the road for Fault Lines in just a couple hours from now. I want to ask you, though, in just a few seconds we have remaining, of the 6 billion people in the world, there's only one that actually sits in that chair and this chair.
Yes.
What's that like, and how is it different for you?
It is a big deal, and it is completely different roles. I'm using different sides of my brain. Yeah. So it's fun, though. You can give it up.
That's it. I don't think I could sit in that chair. You always seem so busy.
I think you could do it.
And I'm wondering what you're doing.
Multitasking.
Right. All right, that's all I have, and that's it from here. I look forward to being back next time, filling in for Mimi OK, and until then, I'll be tweeting in. Thanks for watching. All right, welcome back to our online post show. Things were just getting hot there at the end, weren't they?
They were. And
Yeah,
not only there, online also.
Online. Okay, great. Well, let's keep that going. We're talking about the elections in Turkey, and the AK Party, led by Prime Minister Erdogan, managed to win despite corruption allegations and ongoing protests, and they managed to win fairly handily as well. Our guests are Bilal Majid, a member of the Parliament and the Justice Development Party, Hakan Kamuz, a lobbyist and chairman of the Müsiade UK. That's an NGO that supports Turkish government and Prime Minister Erdogan. Imre Kızılkaya, the managing editor of Hürriyet Daily News, and Melike Tufan Yazachi, activist and election monitor, who's laughing at the way I just pronounced her name. I probably have pronounced it 4 different ways during the course of this one program, and none of them, I'm sure none of them are right. So we ended with community. You want to start with community?
Yeah, we can start with community.
Okay.
I think one of the things that I have noticed, people were tweeting us, and for verification, we went to Hürriyet, of course, we're Imre, that is your own publication. People were tweeting us images like this. This one I pulled up on my screen here, and this is an image from Hürriyet. Ballot officials, election volunteers sleeping with bags of ballots until morning amid fraud allegations. So Emery, people were tweeting us about alleged allegations of fraud. We heard reports of people hearing, seeing and smelling smoke, and that calling into question some things with the ballot. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, there were a lot of fraud allegations, and the courts and the authorities will sooner or later decide on it, and I'm sure that it will convince anybody in Turkey, because in the past we have no widespread fraud in Turkey. More or less, the elections were always just and fair, although there were some irregularities. And in these elections too, there were eyebrow raising some, for instance, blackouts, power blackouts, that many opposition members were saying that might be part of something like a conspiracy during the vote counting in many of, like 40 cities. There were power blackouts and
that's
such
just wrong
widespread
information.
complaints.
Come on, be fair and objective. You're a journalist. You're a journalist. Be objective. You're misinforming the audience here, Emre. You are not being a journalist. You are being partisan.
Like volunteers going
That's what
there
it is.
just to have their votes there, you know.
There was only power. Listen,
so
how about this information? There was only power cut on 4 cities.
It's all about,
there was only power cut in 4 cities, of 3 of which opposition won the local elections.
Young people stayed until morning and, you know, just said that this is my vote and nobody can meddle with it.
Well, no.
I guess it's something positive.
Is this one of the biggest things to come out of the Gezi Park? Is not one of the biggest things, but it is one of the things to come out of it, is that the protesters became involved in election monitoring this time. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it was after the Gezi protest, 2 institutions decided separately to monitor the elections, because there were rumors that there were malfunctions and frauds, etc. So we want to see all the protests with our eyes, and we were only organized for Istanbul, and there were 33,000 ballot boxes in Istanbul, and we were like 22,000 people who are observing the ballot boxes. And
what did you find, Melike?
From that, did you find any evidence, or did any of those monitors find any evidence?
I was at Beşiktaş, and I can't say that there were any fraud, because I see all the process with my own eyes, and Beşiktaş was totally clean. I can say that. But the main thing is the system is very weak. I mean, chaotic. If you create a chaos, the system is totally failing, because
right, it's chaotic.
No. You know, you're wrong. I tell you, Josh. I'll tell you how it works. You have one appointed independent person who's responsible for each ballot box. Each party, the top 4 parties, send one of their representatives to be sitting by the box, and then everybody else can be an independent observer. And if there's any allegations of fraud, then they can go to a local application place where they can apply alleging fraud, and it will be investigated. And then you have the local courts who are responsible for that region, and then you have the higher authority, it's called Higher Election Board, which is all made up of independent judges. These allegations are false. They're trying to create perception, and it's partisan, and it is not objective. They're not speaking the truth.
Bilal, I'd like to go to you.
I think I just said that there was nothing in Beşiktaş.
Can I jump into the...
Yeah, I'd actually like to go to Bilal. I'm just going to switch the subject here a little bit, but I'd like to keep it on the Gezi protesters. What is the AKP? What message do they take away from the protesters from Gezi Park? What message does the AKP take away from the protesters from Gezi Park? Like, is the AKP listening to what the protesters were saying?
I mean, first of all, it was a fair, free, and legitimate elections in Turkey. I mean, there were state officials appointed by the higher election board, which is an independent body, and there were independent officials responsible for the vote counting. And in addition to this, there were members from various political parties who are responsible also for the vote counting. And in addition to that, the vote counting was open to all, both international and domestic observers. So votes are counted in front of everyone. Even before the local elections, Minister of EU Affairs invited international observers to Turkey to see the vote counting and to observe the elections in Turkey. But more importantly, there may be some objections in all democracies. I remember the presidential election in the United States when the race was between Bush and Al Gore. I mean, in some districts, votes were recounted and the results has changed there. The thing is that in Turkey, the opposition got less than they were expected, and AK Party won more than they were expecting. So rather than, so this is a very clear failure for the opposition in Turkey. But the opposition, rather than analyzing the results, rather than trying to find out the problems why they got less than the AK Party, they choose the easiest way, which is to blame someone else, which is to find the problem outside of their political ideology or the political party. But again, I say, if anyone who has an objection to the results, if anyone who has an objection for the results, they can apply to higher election board, as we did in some districts, and as the main opposition party CHP did in Yalova in some other districts as well. I mean, BDP applied to the results in Ağrı, and the court decided to make the election again. And in Yalova districts, the main opposition party CHP applied to the election board, and the court decided that the votes recounted again, and it passed from AK Party to CHP. I mean, this happens in the whole districts, but the main thing is that these are the minor problems that's not going to affect the results.
Right, so I want to move us a little bit forward, because those aren't going to affect the results of the March election, as Bilal mentioned. But I want to move us, let's say, 4 months. I want to let's go to August. Hakan, I want to read first 2 tweets from our community. This is from Turkoglu, who says, ordinary Turks were left to rot, he says, under the seculars' 80-year regime. For the first time in history, one man took them seriously. I love RTE, he says, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Another person on Facebook, everyone needs to understand one thing, that the alternative is worse than Erdogan. God willing, the secularists will never come to power again. So we are seeing the sentiment that Erdogan was a really good thing for a lot of people in the country. So take us forward to elections, Hakan. What will we see happen in August?
Most likely scenario discussed at the moment is that he will be the president, and AK Party, as you know, the next election in August, the president will be elected by popular vote for the first time in Turkey, unlike how it used to be, i.e. they used to get elected from the parliament by the MPs. And they expect Recep Tayyip Erdogan to be the president. I mean, this is $1 million question. I'll be honest with you. I don't think even like the most enlightened political analyst could actually come up with an answer to this question. Will he become a president? Will he not become a president? It's debated, but it is expected that he will become a candidate.
And Abdullah Gül?
Again, $1 million question. What happens to him? Does he come back and become a prime minister?
Is it like the Turkish version of Putin and Medvedev, right? Are they just going to swap chairs again? Yeah, you like that.
He'll tell you.
You like that. All right. Let's end it here. Thanks a lot. On the next show, well, look, next show's not mine. It's yours. You want to read that on this?
Sure, I will. Looking forward to what you have to tell us on fault lines, though. Maybe we can.
I'm back on the road in about 2 hours. So.
I can't wait. Well, on the next show, you can tune in, because we'll be talking about Rwanda. 20 years after the Rwandan genocide, has the country reconciled with its past? We'll hear personal stories from genocide survivors, so you can send us your questions for them. I'll be in that chair. Omar Badar will be in this one. And until then, Josh and I will see you online.
All right, yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for having me for the last 2 weeks, and I look forward to coming back. And yeah, in the meantime, I'll be on the road with Fault Lines, so you'll still catch me on Al Jazeera. Thanks a lot, guys. Until then, we'll all see you online.